This episode of the BeanCast is brought to you by Methodify by Delvinia. Get real-world customer feedback in hours, not weeks. Schedule your demo and get a free $20 Amazon gift card. Go to methodify.it/BeanCast and Methodify it today. Bandwidth provided by Recursive Squirrel Interactive. Visit them on the web at recursivesquirrel.com. Episode 589. California Made Them Do It. For Monday, April 20th, 2020. It's time for this week's edition of the BeanCast, a weekly discussion about the news and issues facing marketers today. I'm your host, Bob Norp. Thanks for joining us. We knew it was coming. The layoffs and salary cuts in the agency world have gone from a steady stream to a raging torrent. Each of the three major holding companies announced sweeping plans this week, and even the top ranks weren't spared. What comes next? We'll discuss. Also, whether brands should still be inspiring now, crowdsourcing as a solution to production shutdowns, how FOMO is still alive in quarantine, plus this week's Fair, Fail, Foul. That's the lineup. Let's meet tonight's panel. Thanks for joining us for this week's BeanCast. I'm Bob Norp, and with me on the panel for this evening, we start with the founder and principal consultant at the Idea Integration Company, Mr. Saul Colt is here. Hi, Saul.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me on the show in these very uncertain times.
You're not going to start with the uncertain times stuff, please. Next thing you know, we're going to be saying new normal. I can't take anymore. Now, next, he's the VP of Industry Insights at Yext, author, speaker, Mr. Duane Forrester. Hi, Duane.
Bob, thank you very much for having me back on this from a remote location, our new normal.
We're always doing this remotely. Now, back on the show after her big move to the U.S. Tennis Association last year, the Managing Director of Content and Creative Services there, Ms. Sloane Kelly. Hi, Sloane.
Hey there. Thanks for having me back.
I've been wanting you back for a long time. I'm really glad you made it. This is great. As I've been saying many times, it's taken a pandemic to bring so many people back into the fold.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
And finally, he's the president and chief creative officer at Allscope and board member at Mashburn Enterprises, Mr. Jonathan Sackett. Hi, Jonathan.
Bob, will you do that again, please? I think I demand a little bit better than that, please. Thanks.
He's president and chief creative officer at Allscope and board member at Mashburn Enterprises, Mr. Jonathan Sackett. How's that?
Hey-o! Beautiful.
Great. I'm glad I got it well. All right. Well, let's jump right into the topics. First up is a bad one. It's something that we knew was coming. The big three holding companies and many of their affiliated agencies and a lot of the independent agencies have begun the process of massive staff cuts and salary reductions with full expectation of more to come. We've been seeing a steady stream of layoffs going on around the country. We knew it was coming, but to have all three major holding companies come out with their statements in the same week was kind of devastating. Duane, how does the agency world hope to ever survive this? Let's just bring this to the point, I guess, in the discussion. What do they do? Where do we go from here?
This is, it doesn't matter how we say this. It's going to become fairly repetitive fairly quickly in our lives. These are unprecedented times. And this is where we find ourselves. You find yourself walking into work. You're not exactly sure what your consumer is thinking or doing or willing to do. You have had to make a dramatic left turn from your plan and invent a new plan that positions your company to be helpful, to be authoritative, to be, there for the customer. And that means a lot of change. That means a lot of campaigns being put on hold. means a lot of shift from traditional media to digital because it's cheaper and faster and you can get things to market super easy. There's not a lot of moving pieces for a lot of different types of ad campaigns in the digital world. And it means then inside large agencies, you're seeing a shift. I don't know that we've quite netted out to, an equilibrium point at this time. I expect there to be more change. I'm seeing in the digital world a lot of the agencies that we work with and that I know people at, they're in a bit of flux right now. And it's because the larger company itself is in flux. And therefore, the digital folks are kind of, okay, we have to wait and see what's happening, get new direction. And then, of course, you've got the clients on top of that, the big brands who are sitting there saying, give us a minute, don't execute right now, let us figure this out, and that kind of thing. And it's putting a lot of pressure on it.
Is this mainly the way you put that? It sounds like there's just a lot of decisions that need to be made, and is the need to lay off essential at this point, or is it maybe just reaction and fear? I mean, I'm trying to get a handle on that, because if brands are just trying to figure things out and trying to get a handle on the situation, wouldn't it behoove people to just kind of wait it out a little bit and then go into action when the brands realize we need to be out there marketing?
Yeah. I'm sorry,
ahead.
guys. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it shows that creative people aren't valued in the whole agency world, because they were the ones that mostly got let go at this time. But besides that, and I've sort of been saying this to whoever will, give me my soapbox. People will remember how brands and agencies treated their staff through this, or at least I hope people remember
Absolutely.
how brands and agencies have treated their staff. And I think the two learnings from this is that there's probably a lot of redundant people in agencies, because for some reason still headcount is considered like a badge of honor and growth and all that stuff like that. But the other thing that I think should really be noticed and noted is, there's some big giant companies that executives are taking huge pay cuts to keep their staff, and the agency world doesn't seem to be in that sort of mindset. I did read in one of the articles that what was his Mike Ross, he took a 2% pay cut, which lowered his salary to 16.6 million from whatever 2% more of 16.6 million is. I'm pretty sure he could probably still live off of $10 million a year. He probably made $5 million bonus last year. I realize he doesn't own the company or anything like that, so he may not feel that he has to do anything like that. But imagine if he floated $3 or $4 million back of his salary into his employees. Not only would these people follow him anywhere he went when he gets fired and goes and does something else, but they'd also get to keep the band back together, at least for another 3-4 months. So chances are they either don't care about the creative people, they're using this as an excuse to get rid of some dead weight, or they're just really bad people.
So I actually think I kind of agree with what we're talking about here. I think there's another layer to it as well, which is, we're kind of seeing.
Are you still there, Duane?
Here, I'll finish up what Duane was going to say. I think Jonathan Sackett is really awesome.
Duane always has that to say.
I'll keep talking, but you can't get me to believe that agencies aren't banging on the doors of all these brands saying, you got to keep going. This is the time to, let's do some award-winning work like that Honda ad where they use the toy car. There's no way agencies aren't trying to keep the ball moving. So, either the brands are taking a stand and saying it's not time, or this is a smokescreen for a bunch of firing that they've wanted to do for a long time.
Well, yeah, I would just add to that, Saul. I think, I have been a chief within WPP, IPG, and Omnicom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, there's two things going on here. Number one, agencies do not plan for their own future. There's no money in reserve. It doesn't work that way. It's standard staffing plan sales, it's keeping your people busy. And as soon as that money or that client goes away, those people that worked on that client are relieved of their jobs. That's how it works. That's the agency model. Now, the other challenge for that is that if the agencies stay out front of their client's business and say, look, you've got to have an e-business plan in case something goes to hell. So, so right now you're a restaurant chain. Okay, are you moving towards delivery? Can you move towards delivery fast enough? You have to plan for the worst and hope for the best in everything. Now, keeping that in mind, knowing that agencies don't have reserve money, they never do, and the pandemic comes around, you got to lay people off immediately because there is no reserve. And on top of it, you weren't planning for it to begin with, to say, look, here's how we're going to stay out front of this if something goes to hell. So that's the agency model. That's the agency business. And that's why when you work at these agencies and you get to a certain position there, you make really, really good money. And that's just because there's no safety net for you. That safety net for you is the money you're earning now.
No, but the agency's job, like you just said, the agency's job is kind of to milk every penny out of their client they can, because clients are transactional and relationships could be, anywhere from 6 months to 20 years. So why aren't they saying, hey, let's work on this digital plan together. We've got the people here to do all the big thinking for you.
Yeah, I agree. But, I also, just to add to that, Saul, I can't tell you how many shoots I've been on for name a client. And what happens is I see 20 people walking around from my agency. I'm like, we can do this with 3.
Mhm.
So, again, it's bloated. To your point, it is bloated and they're trimming some of the fat, but because there's no contingency plan or staying out in front of it, in my experience at the big agencies, digital is the stepchild.
How much of this is just musical chairs then? It sounds like what you guys are suggesting is that this is what happens normally. When the client pulls back, we lay off people. So there's no difference in the mechanic at the agency level. And when the clients come back, everybody gets new jobs at new places maybe, but everybody plays musical chairs with this. So is this really a matter to be concerned about the future of agencies? Or is this something that's just normal operating procedure and they're going to get through this just fine and everybody's going to get back to work as soon as the clients come back with the money?
I think it's... Go ahead.
Saul. Please, Saul, you go. I'll go after you.
Well, let me guess first to see if Duane is back. Duane, are you here?
I am here.
Okay.
And this is lively and exciting, let me tell you.
All right.
Let me just say this. I will say that right now is not a time to be letting go of talent that you are going to need 6 months from now. Right now, the only drumbeat that you should have with your company is reminding your clients you've got to keep your foot on the gas right now. Consumers are looking for information. My company has seen an 84% increase in 2 months in the usage of our platform because of the pandemic and consumers directly looking for answers from brands. The consumers want the information. So the brand has the responsibility to fill in that blank accurately. And that's not going to happen by turning to an agency and saying, we got to hold back, we got to cut people. And then the agency doing exactly what the team here on the podcast is saying. I used to run an agency here in California, and outside of legislative rules of engagement, it's very tied to how much money are we bringing in this month? That's how many jobs we have. And it's a really hard spot. Do agencies go away? Oh, heck no. That's where all the muscle is. And it's still a very viable path for a lot of big companies.
I'd love to... Go ahead, Saul.
Bob, you'd said, is this just status quo? I think it feels a little different because I think that it shows that the agency world has a lack of confidence in their ability to do what they do right now. They should be banging the drum, louder than they've ever banged it, with cool slogans like, companies that wait and see right now are going to be, left out of the conversation. That's trademarked by me. I've been saying it everywhere. But, it's like they're not doing themselves a service right now. And to try to actually save the industry or create confidence amongst the brands, they're really just kind of like, bending over and saying, whatever happens, happens.
I'd love to get Sloane's opinion on all of this, being the only one of us who's not currently involved in the consulting agency side of the business and actually working for a client. So what are you in any way concerned about the pullback in the agency world, or is this just normal operating procedure as far as you're concerned, and you'll still get the service from your agency partners when you come back?
I mean, I think the big difference with this one is it's just so much all at once. Like it's not just losing a client, which on the agency side, that can be totally devastating to your staff if it's a big client. And when I've been on the agency side, I've been through that and it's hard, but it's everywhere. And it's just there's no playbook or sense of what's going to happen next. And my sense of kind of the brand world right now is that uncertainty. It's like, do you hang on to your money for a particular reason? There's certainly a lot of brands out there too that are having to let go of staff or cut salaries and making a lot of difficult decisions.
Yes.
And really trying, even my own company, we're really trying to get out there and be supportive of the tennis industry and some of the folks that are out there and hurting. And it shifts your focus to like what's the most important thing. And I'm sure that every brand is trying to kind of go through those same questions without really knowing how long all of this is going to last.
On a total segue here, I've got to say it must be a good time for you in particular dealing with content, because people who are hungry for tennis are probably really hitting you up hard for trying to get some kind of content to watch in their sport of choice. So are you guys running crazy trying to get that stuff ready?
We are working around the clock, which I feel like my team always is. But the week that everything really kind of hit, at least here in New York, we shifted our entire strategy really on the fly, and have adjusted to, I would say, kind of a two-pronged focus. One is really like, how do we entertain our fans all over the world that are hungry for tennis? And we have a presence in China on a few different platforms that are there. And so we had kind of seen some of this happening with our Chinese content already. So we had some way in terms of ideas of what we might create. And we started generating full matches that we're airing as if they're live every Saturday. And we're adding like fun elements where fans can get involved, and it's really more of a social experience than it is a lean back experience. But as we've been publishing that on Facebook and Twitter, I think the really interesting thing has been seeing the comments coming in from all over the world, from people saying like, thank you for putting this out there. This is, giving me tennis for the first time in a long time. And that, you see that goes a long way. So that's been kind of one part of our approach. And then the second has been really trying to be more kind of helpful or informative to our USTA, U.S. Tennis Association family, and developing content for them that will be helpful while people are at home, whether that's, parents home with kids, or, other folks that are at home and looking for ways to stay active. So we started probably going on 6 weeks ago, 5 or 6 weeks ago, we started an approach where we're showing parents things they can do with kids at home to keep them active, and different types of tennis exercises. And the cool thing is a lot of them have been sending us back their like videos from their backyards or their living rooms or basements. And it's been certainly super cute to see the kids doing this kind of stuff, but it also reminds you that we're all going through this together. We're trying to figure out ways to, keep activity rolling, and any way that the USTA can be of service. And from that perspective, we're, just trying to push more and more content out the door every day.
Well, I want to wrap this up with one last question about the topic at hand, which is agencies. And I want to go to Jonathan on this one just to start, and anybody else can chime in. But do we think this is the end? Like, is this just the natural bloodletting that was pre-planned in a lot of ways that the agencies would have done if they lost a client, et cetera? Or is this just the first step that's going to lead to a lot more bloodletting if this quarantine drags on? I mean, what's your sense of the industry right now, Jonathan?
Well, Well, first of all, I disagree with everything that Sloane said. No. This is the beginning of the bloodletting. I guarantee it.
It's just the beginning.
What's that?
Just the beginning is what you're saying.
This is just the beginning. It's going to get a heck of a lot worse for ad agencies. Now, what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot more furloughs, if you want to call it that, or layoffs. But if the agencies do the right thing by their people, by their business, and by their clients, what they're going to do is it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself. Because you got to remember I said earlier there's 20 people walking around the shoot and I only needed 3. Well, that's how agencies make their money, as the markup on people. That's just how the model works. This is a great opportunity to reinvent yourself and to become leaner and smarter and be more e-business, not e-marketing forward. So I'm hoping that this is an opportunity to reinvent, but I will tell you this, it's going to get a heck of a lot worse.
Everybody else agree with a somber prediction, or do you feel like brands are going to get their act together in time to like bring the agency world back to life?
I'm going to agree, and I'm going to kind of echo the sentiment here that like now is the time to get your hosts in the proper order. Don't follow old school paradigms. Excuse me. Literally get with the 21st century with this. And the agencies that step forward, take care of their people and protect them and demonstrate that, those are the ones that are going to survive long term in this, because the brands are being impacted by that exact moment with consumers. If a consumer sees that the brand takes care of their employees in a downturn like this, the consumer loves the brand. The brand wants an agency that reflects that. Because if the consumer finds out that the agency the brand is using doesn't care about its people, immediately the brand takes a hit. It's inevitable. So yeah, we are going to see change from this.
You know, that's a great segue into our next topic, which is more about brands trying to be inspiring at this time. Brands are trying to go out with their inspiring commercials about how we're all doing it together. But there was one article I read this week that kind of posited the fact that brands should be just helpful. I think it's an interesting topic. We're going to get to it in just a minute. But first, I want to do a little ad read from our sponsor. It's time to talk about Methodify by Delvinia and give you another chance to get a $20 Amazon gift card just for checking them out. Now, you've been listening to the show. You know that we've been discussing COVID-19 a lot on the show. I mean, there's not a single program I've listened to that doesn't bring it up at least once these days. And we're talking about how it's affecting the marketing and advertising industry and the people involved in it. And you all know by now about the McDonald's ad in Brazil that separated the arches to symbolize social distancing. Now, people got really, really ticked about this. They thought it was a terrible idea. It was just not well received. And we understand that behind every brand are real people like you making decisions while in a stressful situation. We have total sympathy here. We're not trying to lambaste them, but it is a problem that might have been avoided with faster research. This is where our sponsor, Methodify by Delvinia, can help. Now, Methodify collects real feedback from your actual customers on concepts or creative before you release it into the world. And the whole process will take you hours, hear me on that, hours, not days. Now, Methodify gives insight professionals and senior marketing people the information they need to power better decisions that will protect their brand and themselves in this new world we're facing. Now, just a few weekends ago, Methodify was used to test digital creative for another fast food chain just to make sure that the messaging wasn't tone deaf, that it was on brand, that it was doing the right things. It was invaluable information for them, and Methodify can do the same thing for you. Actual customer feedback is a game changer because in times like these, brands that wait and see are going to wind up making costly mistakes. Now, connect with your customers, sure. Build brands, build relationships, build trust, build fans, but test everything. And Methodify can get you started today. Now, to find out more about Methodify and to set up a demo, just Methodify it. Now, I've been making this joke every single week, but it's the same thing. Methodify it. methodify.it. That's their address. Go to methodifyit.com/BeanCast. And as a way of saying thanks, every BeanCast listener who signs up and completes a demo will receive a $20 Amazon gift card just for your time. And believe me, we all know you have plenty of time to do this. We all have plenty of time to do this. So again, that address is methodify.it/BeanCast, and we thank them very much for their support of our program. Well, there's a debate about how to message right now. But one writer I was reading took issue with commercials that say they care and urges more practical actions from brands, like making sure that people are safe, making sure that everybody's fed, making sure that basic needs are met. We talked a little bit about this last week about the inverting the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But what's interesting to me is this juxtaposition, Jonathan, between trying to be inspirational versus trying to be helpful. And I'm wondering, is it helpful to just lose inspiration and just be helpful? I mean, I just phrased that question so terribly, but try.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you, man. I think, the thing about it is, it reminds me of when I was working with State Farm. They came to us. Do you guys remember the commercial we did? It was for 9/11. It was we had the Harlem Children's Choir go to a New York fire department and sing Empire State of Mind to them. Do you guys remember this one at all?
No.
Yeah,
Well,
was it like pro 9/11 or anti 9/11?
No, it was anti. Thanks for asking. But the thing was that they said to us, hey, we want to thank the firemen and thank the people who saved lives. So we had the children's choir sing, Empire State of Mind to them, and that was it. And at the end, we just put a thank you on there. I think you got to be there's a fine line between, what you're asking, Bob, is should we be more helpful, or should we maybe pat ourselves on the back, or should we tell you, hey, as a Dorito brand, everything's going to be okay? I just think that it's a very fine line between exploiting the situation and communicating and helping. It's always more powerful to have somebody else say you're helping or doing a good job, right? The more that you beat your own chest and the more that you go after this and say, hey, in this dire time and during this pandemic and stuff, I personally am sick of seeing it and I'm sick of hearing it. And I think if the brands put their money where their mouth is and use it as more of a platform or a case study or here's what we're going to do about it, then I think that's a heck of a lot more powerful than all this hand-holding and going about it to say, oh, hey, Doritos cares about you, and we know you're sitting home, so eat Doritos. I think you got to be very careful with that.
One second, Saul. We should have started with Sloane on this one. I got mixed up on the script, but I do want to get Sloane's opinion because, again, as the brand of the group, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this particular issue. I mean, is it the time to be inspiring or is it the time to be helpful? Your thoughts?
There's room for both. I think, it doesn't have to be one or the other. The number of brands that can probably legitimately be inspiring right now and where you don't get that like icky feel, it's probably a small set.
The official chewing tobacco of the pandemic, right?
Right. Yeah, probably not the way to go. But I think the most important thing right now certainly is to be helpful as a brand. But there are others that maybe more in the entertainment, sports, or media space that feel like they could lend themselves to having that voice of inspiration right now, or even helping to entertain people. The Nike ad that came out, I thought was a great example of how a brand can be inspiring and not feel tone deaf. And if you haven't seen it, this is the ad where it's just showing a series of people, regular people, as well as a couple of their athletes that are playing at home. And it's this idea that you're playing at home for people all around the world. And one of the things I liked about it from sort of a don't be tone deaf perspective is that it really showed how people are trying to keep active during these crazy times. It shows someone in a hallway, someone in a basement. Not everyone is quarantined at a pro athlete's estate with a big, backyard and pool and all the things. And I found it very moving. But I think the lesson there is that whatever you're doing, whether it's meant to be inspiring or meant to be helpful, you can't be tone deaf right now. You've got to really pay attention to the landscape and think about what people are going through and what they're feeling, and recognize too that landscape is changing almost daily, and also in kind of, in a regional sense, what things feel like in New York City right now. It's very different than what they feel like, for my mom down in Florida. It's something that I think that needs to be thought through.
Saul, you were going to say something?
Well, the big problem I have with all of this is none of it's actually inspiring. So I do agree with Sloan about the Nike ad, and I think they did a really great job. But for the most part, a lot of the ads, and I'm sort of parroting a little bit of what Jonathan said, but a lot of the ads are, in these uncertain times, we're all in this together. We should all be together in a Toyota. Like, those are literally the ads that people are running, when the approach that they really should be taking, if they really want to be inspiring, and this is a bit of a riff off of something I said on this show a few years ago for International Women's Day, McDonald's flipped the M to a W and they patted themselves on the back, where I said it'd be much better if they just donated $2 million to Planned Parenthood. Going on that same idea, I'd love to see an ad that's just a black screen, white supers, and it says something along the lines of, it costs $1 million to produce a really great TV commercial. We've donated $1 million to wherever, and we love you all. We hope you're all safe. We're not seeing brands actually just give money unless they're getting credit for it. And you want to be really inspiring, just give a lot of money. You can press release it if you want, but running ads that just still say buy our product with the American flag and a couple, messy looking nurses and stuff like that isn't the way to go. And, these ads are not going to age well. And I don't think they're going to, and I'm not even talking 6 months from now. I'm talking 6 weeks from now, because and we're joked about the new normal, but I think we're all getting really fatigued by this. And instead of us wanting to, lift up, feel good about ourselves from afar, we actually want results pretty soon. So these brands actually have to take a different approach, either, just completely pretend that nothing's happening, or actually do something to actually fix it. But the sort of wishy-washy in the middle, like I said before, people are going to remember. I feel like I'm beating, the same sort of pan, to use a little 7 o'clock at night, first responders analogy, but people are going to remember everything. There is no playbook. There are no rules. So to think that we can live off of some best practices right now is ridiculous. This is actually a really interesting time to experiment with things, which I don't see anybody experimenting. It's almost like they pulled the 9/11 playbook out of their pocket, and they're just sort of rinsing and repeating with a new sort of, awful tragedy. This is a time to actually talk to people and find out what they want. You heard that ad from Methodify. Maybe that's the route to go. This is a time to actually make really different changes, because, all the ads are starting to look the same.
Yeah,
so
you're very much so. You know what?
Yeah.
I think I've got this solved, guys. Are you ready for this? Charmin, let's wipe this together.
Okay. Hey, you know what? One particular category out there has been doing something really interesting, and I think it's a little bit off playbook, because it looked at the actual situation and found a way to be helpful, and that's the insurance category. I'm not sure which of them started it, but they've all fallen in line, and they're all giving drivers a rebate because A, drivers aren't driving, and B, they're not having to pay claims because drivers aren't getting into accidents. So we have all this extra money, and we're giving it back to the customers. I think that's a really smart strategy for building loyalty while it's just plain doing the right thing. What do you guys think about that?
In the state of California, that was mandated by the government agency that oversees insurance sales here.
So there you go.
Not by the brands themselves.
Okay, but so it wasn't by the brands. They were made to do the right thing, but they did the right thing, and it looks good.
Here's the reality. The reality is, I believe the brands were doing that anyhow in other areas. It would inevitably go nationwide. So, whether the chicken or the egg came first in this one, I think the brand gets the thumbs up regardless.
Well, it's in any case, it's yards better than what American Express does, where they just basically send you a list of all their online resources and says, pay your bill.
Listen, I'll tell you that, in the debate over inspiring or helpful, brands need to be helpful. There's no question in my mind. We've got a platform, and it's an AI-powered platform that answers questions, and it has been deployed by the State Department, New Jersey State, and the state of Alabama. And the real-time data that shows the questions that people are asking, people are not looking for inspiration right now. They are looking for answers and clarity and guidance and solutions to problems that they face. That's what people want. So if brands want to win, step in on that side. Donate the money, make research move faster. Donate the money, protect jobs.
I think you're absolutely right. But you guys do agree with me that there's also a better way to take credit for the good things that you're doing, right?
Oh, I think so. And I'm firmly in the camp on this one. If you are seen to do good things, people will remember that.
Exactly.
That's my perspective. So do you need an ad that reminds people? Oh, I don't think so. That just doesn't resonate.
There's some other interesting things that brands can do. Like when I was talking about experimentation, I've been pitching a couple, sort of crazy ideas to brands that, I haven't seen the courage to actually do something. But, from a guerrilla standpoint or an experiential standpoint, I'd love to see a brand, and I've been pitching this. Let's paint the streets, things that say stay home. Let's buy billboards, because billboards are almost free right now. A brand should be saying, if you could see this billboard, you might be killing old people. There's tons of interesting things that brands could do if they had, a little bit of stomach to do some interesting things. And they will be rewarded, because these things will get covered by national news and all sorts of things, because it's like, who's buying billboards right now and things like that. Like, there are so many things brands could do instead of a stock photography voiceover commercial, with doctors crying and things like that.
Speaking of that kind of creativity, speaking of that kind of resourcefulness, with production pretty much at a standstill, creatives apparently are starting to turn back to crowdsourcing as a solution to generate new ads. Jonathan, you run an agency. You've been involved with this situation. Is crowdsourcing the answer? I mean, I've seen a few of these crowdsourced ads. They're kind of janky, but they work. I'm not sure this is the right solution. I'm kind of more in the camp of what Saul brought up, which is that the United Arab Emirates, I think it's Ogilvy in the United Arab Emirates, did a whole commercial using a toy car, which was phenomenal. That seems like a more resourceful solution than going to crowdsourcing. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, crowdsourcing is dangerous. It can be effective too if it's part of a bigger strategy. Okay. I think some of these initiatives that I'm seeing where the brands are running to a crowdsource, I think you got to be very careful there, because just like having celebrity endorsement, it can backfire, and it can backfire quickly. So, you put all your money into Halle Berry speaking on behalf of your brand, and she gets arrested for something. Whoops. Same with crowdsourcing. It's what gets through that social medium. You got to be very careful of. I think I'm seeing too many people running to that as a solution versus saying, look, this is going to be a component of a bigger strategy. You're absolutely right about the toy car. There's ways to get around this to convey your message. There's ways to break through the coronavirus clutter. There's ways to break through that stuff. And I don't think crowdsourcing is the answer. It's a short-term solution to a longer-term problem, because once you lose control of your brand, you lose control of your brand.
But there's something to be said for mixing crowdsourcing with the more nuanced production and bringing it all to market at the same time. I mean, look what Sloane, you're doing that. I mean, so you were just mentioning you're bringing in some crowdsourced videos of kids doing stuff out in basements and in hallways and in backyards. And, that mixes in with your really well-produced content, and it forms a total brand impression, right?
And I think it works. I mean, I think to Jonathan's point, like, this is definitely a bigger strategy for us with our youth program, which is Net Generation for the USTA. This is something that we do all the time. We have, typically we are working with ambassadors, and we're often, trying to kind of generate this more grassroots type content out there. So we've sort of taken, I would say, a new tactic with it, but it's not just kind of a brand new like one-off. But I think it does fit right now, and it's certainly in line with what we're already seeing. So we didn't have to really do a ton to get kids out there to be sending us this stuff. They almost already know to do it because it's something that we lean into throughout the year. But I think the other piece too that I've seen some brands out there that I've gotten a little worried about, some that are doing this kind of stuff, is I'm not sure how much they're really asking permission to use the content, which is something we're always trying to be very mindful of. Even if someone uses your hashtag or tags you, are they really explicitly giving you permission to use that video in the context of some type of a message? And I think that's where, brands that are taking this approach, they need to be careful and make sure that they are checking off those boxes too.
Hey, Sloan, just out of curiosity, are you guys doing anything with that? Those two guys playing tennis while the old guy is snoring? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is that the one from Spain? Am I remembering that one?
It looks like India, perhaps.
Oh, maybe I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. I'll send you a link afterwards because it's got a ton of views. But again, that goes back to the strategy of, look, then how do you magnify messaging on tennis while we're quarantined? Well, look at what these guys did. I think that's interesting, but it still brings tennis top of mind. I'm just curious.
Whenever we bring up crowdsourcing, the issue of devaluation of creative comes up. I mean, the idea that creative is not important, we can just crowdsource it and other people will create our content for us. Saul, that goes right back to what you were saying earlier about agencies laying off people. I mean, it's just like it's devaluation of creative primarily, right?
Yeah, and I think creative people are completely unappreciated until you need them. But even further than that, I would say the crowdsourcing thing, sort of. Again, I'm repeating what Jonathan said, but with my own sort of little flair to it. It's great for the short term, but we already have all these ads looking the same as it is, and all of a sudden we're going to have all of our ads looking the same. And my fear with crowdsourcing too much is eventually people are going to get so hungry for the attention that they're going to put themselves at risk to get seen. Maybe they're not going to be social distancing. They're not going to be doing all the things we're supposed to be doing right now because, their thirst for fame, it's like I could be featured in a Coke commercial or whatever. Like, there's so much more interesting things we can do. And I also think, and this is just my own sort of jaded angle of it, it's a weird thing to ask people in the long term when people are not working, or a majority of people aren't working, and they're struggling to pay for things, and we're asking people to create things for free. If there was a way that you could actually reward people for you get X number of dollars just for doing it and triple that if we use it kind of thing, then I would be all into this. And it's almost like a make work project and a way of really being useful. But to further the sentiment that big brands are getting tax breaks and all these things, and now they're not even paying for creative, it's a really, really weird message to send at this time.
Yeah, good points. Duane, I know this isn't your bailiwick, but I wanted to include you in the conversation at least a little bit. What are your thoughts about the crowdsourcing tactic overall? Is it a wise strategy for the agencies and brands to be employing right now? And is it something that could have some lasting impact, or is this just a kind of stopgap measure at the moment?
I think these types of things have a time and a place, and they have a usefulness. I very much line up with Sloane's thinking here in terms of, the legality of usefulness and what that looks like come, 6 months, a year down the road. Your campaign lights off, it goes viral, everything is there. And suddenly somebody who was used in this, who you thought you had permission for, comes back at you saying, now, no, I'm causing a problem. There's a lot of those little nuanced things. I think in the near term, this all blends together, and just like going ad blind, we go blind to these types of ads. And I think it was Saul earlier who mentioned, look, just throw your money at a charity that really needs the support, that does more good, and put a blank spot on the television and say, we bought this time. You're not looking at an ad because we put the money over here. That's going to have a bigger impact to me and for most consumers. So, this sort of thing, I think we're going to blow through this concept pretty quickly and come out the other side realizing, there's got to be a different way.
Good point, Saul. Well, I wanted to wrap up the show with, or wrap up the discussion portion of the show with this great article from the New York Times, which highlighted the fact that even in lockdown, apparently FOMO still survives. For those of you living under a rock, FOMO stands for fear of missing out. Saul, is this useful information for advertisers? I mean, knowing this, the article was pretty funny about how she was used to be being jealous of people on beaches. Now she's jealous of people's baking, but still FOMO survives. Does that help advertisers in any way? Should we be paying attention to that fact?
So it was a really well-written and cute article, but out of all our topics tonight, this is the one I was least passionate about. Does this help advertisers? Yeah, if there was any more creatives, they could run with this thing, working in ads. But the idea that brands should, sort of shame people is silly because, I'm stretching a little bit of the core idea of the article, but they did mention a lot about how there's a lot of discussion right now that's like, oh, you're home. If you don't learn a language or don't learn to make sourdough or all these things, you've wasted all your time. I think the only thing we should be shaming people right now is to literally stay home and stay safe. You want to be proactive. You want to be, one of these type A people. Great. If you don't, take some time and heal. We've all been through something pretty crazy. I could joke and say in these uncertain times, we need to remember we're all in this together. I've kind of bled that joke to death tonight. But, reminding people that, great companies were formed and, in 2008 and all that, it just makes me roll my eyes. Like maybe I'm the opposite of FOMO. I'm just trying to figure out how to thrive through this and turn things around for myself and my company. So I'm kind of immune to any outside messaging that don't sort of hit what I need right now. And I think more people are like that. So, I think that it depends on the type of the personality you're trying to talk to. But for the most part, I don't think a lot of people are receptive to this. Funny article, great. But I think that at least a quarter of this woman who wrote it, tongue was firmly in cheek.
Let's hope.
Yeah, I think that's probably a very accurate assessment of the article as a whole. It's like it was mainly about tongue in cheek, but it was an interesting premise though to consider that if someone's willing to continue to have FOMO and still be influenced by social media so powerfully by what they're seeing their influencers doing, the influencers in their immediate circle. Sloane, doesn't that make it so that social media is still an important part of the mix for any brand, and they need to be continuing to put the pressure in this space at this particular time? Because it seems like, especially when we're talking about the things that you can do in quarantine, being able to do those things better is something that is tremendously marketable at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there. I do think that there's probably at least just, focus group of one. There's probably, enough of the stories that are out there of, these are the tips in getting through your work day, make sure you put on your regular work clothes and all this stuff. And it makes me feel shamed. I'm like, really? I have to get dressed up to hop on my Google Hangouts for the day. I'm just trying to make it through in one piece, and some days are better than the others. So I think the brands that are taking note of maybe how people are feeling and offering some type of, whether it's content that's just making them, think about another time or place, or it's something that's a little bit more helpful and, doesn't make you feel bad. I think those are the brands that are doing better across the social platforms. And I think it's true too from, the dreaded influencer world as well. There's been, I think, many examples of some of the influencers who have made some decisions that, people have really questioned. And it's been another, I think, just nuance that I know I didn't really see coming at the start of all this, but will be interesting to see how advertisers take note of that too.
I feel bad for a lot of influencers. There's people in my feed that are still doing like clothing hauls and things like that. And like when I see that, I'm not going to out anybody, but when I see that, I think, wow, that brand is still doing this. And wow, that person thinks that what we need right now is to see her snap her fingers and boom, she's in another outfit. And then, somebody comes, opens an umbrella and closes it and she's in another outfit. Like that is not what anybody really wants to see right now. Maybe in a couple of weeks or something, but it just seems like some people are really pretending that like it's just it's January 1st and the world is exactly the way it was. And I think those people stand out, and I think that's different than being tone deaf. Tone deaf is sort of putting your foot in your mouth. This is almost just like a level of ignorance that I think people will remember.
Wait a
Guys,
minute, Saul.
I think
you mean people can snap their fingers and change their clothes? What?
Haven't you seen I Dream of Jeannie? Come on. You've seen I Dream
Guys,
of
I think
Jeannie.
there's a single moment around FOMO right now that is acceptable and makes sense. And that is when the delivery of toilet paper is hitting your local grocery store.
Well, how come nobody liked my
warrants
Charmin idea?
FOMO.
I
according to
I go the distance, I tell you my idea, and I get nothing.
Jonathan, I'm totally drafting off you here.
You are right, though. You're absolutely right.
According to an article,
I'm not able to leave my house. I am in the vulnerable category, so I've been ordering Amazon Prime and things whenever I can get a delivery window, and inevitably I'm on a video chat when the delivery comes, and I have to like stop. And everyone's seeing my delivery in action, and there's definitely some FOMO, especially if I've gotten eggs or toilet paper, things that are in demand.
Oh, listen, I'll tell you, my entire life revolves around my front doorstep now, and I literally don't care if it's the founder of my company. Whatever I'm doing goes on hold when the delivery arrives.
Well,
because that's my life.
Well, Duane, to that point, I got to tell you, I'm sure you guys are experiencing this too. I live in downtown Chicago. I've experienced a much, much lesser degree of theft from.
Oh, yes.
So that's the only good thing is the stuff's at least getting through to me. So that's good.
Well, with that, it's time for this week's Fair, Fail, Foul. But before we get to that segment of the show, I do want to take this quick opportunity to thank my guests again and allow them to each do a shameless plug. Starting with Saul Colt. You can find him at theideaintegration.com. That's the home of his consultancy. You can also check out his podcast from there. Tell us, Saul, what's going on in your world? What would you like to promote?
So I'm going to just be honest. All my projects were canceled because of this stuff. So I've got a completely open calendar. So I've used my time to rebuild my website. You guys want to go see a beautiful website? You're probably not going to find it at theideaintegration.com, but there's a pretty decent one. It's a lot better than it was 6 months ago now. And I've been doing free 15-minute consulting calls. I opened up my calendar. I've done 160 of them in the last, I guess about 5 weeks. So if you want to grab 15 minutes of my time, go to calendly.com/coffee with Saul. Otherwise, I would love to talk to people about working together. I know exactly what we should be doing right now. So you can almost guarantee if we work together, you will end up in the fair section and not the fail and foul section of this program. So please reach out at theideaintegration.com.
I wish I could brand that. That would be awesome. It's just like, this is a BeanCast fair ad. Duane Forrester, you can find him at yext.com. That's not text, it's yext.com. Tell us what's going on in your world, Duane. What would you like to promote?
Well, I'll keep this pretty simple, Bob. I mentioned earlier that we partner with State Department, State of Alabama, and the State of New Jersey to provide answers for, in this case, the COVID scenarios. That platform is available free for anyone to try. It's the Answers platform. And if folks just want to hit yext.com, they can sign up for the free trial, and bad site search goes away, replaced by machine learning and AI. It gets much, much better on the other side.
And Duane knows what he's talking about, because if you don't know Duane, Duane has basically written the books on search and blogging and all the cool stuff about getting your content marketing to a place where you're getting the Google results and the Bing results and all the Yahoo results and all the sites that he's worked with. So he knows his stuff. Next up, Sloan Kelly. You can find her at USTA. It's .com, right? Not .org, or is it both?
.com.
.com. USTA.com. Tell us, Sloan, what's going on in your world? What would you like to promote?
Yeah, well, if you're looking for something fun on a Saturday afternoon, tune in to the US Open channels on Twitter and Facebook for hashtag US Open Classics. Lots of great matches we've dug out of the archives, great rivalries and all that fun stuff. And then, of course, at USTA on the socials as well for some of those at-home fun tips.
And Sloan has a long history of doing this kind of stuff for the sports industry. She knows what she's doing, so definitely check out her site and all the cool stuff going on at USTA. And last but not least, Jonathan Sackett. You can find him at allscope.com. Tell us, Jonathan, what would you like to promote?
Oh, my goodness. You guys saw in my pre-show promotions, I think, that I was tweeting about all this. You guys, anybody listening to this, these are some of the top people in the industry that are on this show. Duane, Sloane, Bob, Saul, these guys are excellent. So I would promote you guys would be the first thing that I would promote. Best people in the industry by far. Secondly, I'm on Thrive Loud podcast tomorrow. I guess that's some sort of a replay. I don't know. They left a message for me and I'm going to be on that. I'd also like to say that unfortunately, my partner, Jamal Mashburn, we lost his mom a few weeks back, Helen. So that shout goes out to Jamal for unfortunately losing Helen. She was a great woman. She raised Jamal by herself, and look at what he's become. And the last thing I would say is support the BeanCast.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you. And yeah, I saw that. That was really sad news. That was pre all this happened. That was like a month ago or so, right?
It was completely unexpected. I mean, it just came out of nowhere. And talk about a strong woman. I mean, raising Jamal by herself and the great.
And for those of you out there who don't know who he's talking about, Jamal Mashburn is the famous basketball player that Jonathan works with, as a partner with.
That was sad news for all involved. But you know what? The proof is in the pudding, and she raised a hell of a guy.
Absolutely. Well, as for me, for more information about me or the show, visit thebeancast.com. There you can find a complete show archive. You can find out how to consult with me. And of course, you can find out how to advertise on this program. So check it all out at thebeancast.com. And now it's time for this week's FairFaul, a rundown of the best and worst of advertising, marketing, and public relations from the last week. First up, this is such a simple campaign. I was almost loath to put it in because it's such a simple campaign, but I think it's brilliant, Sloan, the way that they did this. Burger King did a student promotion that made the answers the promo codes for free Whoppers. So they put these complex mathematical formulas or these difficult literature questions, and the answer was the actual code for unlocking the special delivery of a Whopper. I thought this was brilliant in so many levels.
No, this was great. I mean, definitely leaning into the fact that people are home, they're struggling to come up with their school assignments and all that good stuff. I just hope that the kids were not Googling the answers, but love the intention behind this one.
Who better to inspire young minds than a plastic-faced clown?
Now, the fail of the week goes to Draper James. It's a clothing brand founded by actress Reese Witherspoon. They tried to do a giveaway of dresses for teachers. It was advertised as, we're going to give away dresses to teachers, as a way of saying that we're behind you and we support you during this time when you're teaching at home and having to run your classes over Zoom and all kinds of different challenges of teaching in the time of quarantine. The trouble was, Saul, they didn't really communicate that it was a sweepstakes and not just a free dress. And a lot of teachers got mad because they gave them all their personal information only to find out they had entered a sweepstakes.
Yeah, so I actually went and read the actual post, and man, this could easily be the foul instead of the fail, because it was super misleading. And like, first rule of social media, if you're not going to proofread your post, don't get all your fancy friends to retweet it, because this thing went everywhere, and they had literally 1 million people think they were getting a free dress. Like, I don't know how a brand comes back from this unless they just reopen with a new name in a couple weeks. When I was a kid, I remember a bunch of companies would go bankrupt, and all of a sudden they'd open the next day and it would have the date at the end of the year. So all of a sudden it'd be like Acme Paper, 2006, and that was their new company name. It might be Dapper James, 2020 or something like that.
Well, yeah. Did you see that somebody edited? Do you remember when Reese Witherspoon got arrested for a DWI? Somebody edited that video, and she was yelling at the cops saying, "Do you know who I am?" And she said, "I'm the one who fooled people that they're not getting a dress." And when I saw that video, I just about died.
The internets. Well, the foul of the week, I'm not sure how to take this one. Jonathan, maybe you can help me out on this. But Maurice Levy, who, if you don't remember, was the chief executive officer of Publicis for many, many years. Well, he, in his new role, after I guess it's a retirement role, he went to become CMO at WeWork, and that was in February, and now he's no longer with them after only 3 months. This is not so much saying that Maurice gets the foul here. I think this is pretty much just going, WeWork has no hope of surviving COVID. I just can't see it. They were already in a bad way.
Yeah, well, WeWork's business plan was flawed. It was flawed from the get-go. But I'll tell you something. I got a call from a headhunter that's trying to fill that position right now.
Oh,
Send them my way. I'll take that job.
I don't know, man.
I have a different perspective on WeWork. I mean, to me, this foul is actually this is one of the punchlines to the joke. Why is the CMO's tenure 18 months? Well, you get to that average by people dropping off at 2 and 3 months, or is 18 months. Sorry. So my perspective on WeWork, though, is a little bit different. And I think with the massive shift to working from home, we are going to see a lot of shift in local real estate for businesses, and they are going to look for opportunities to source local areas for groups of employees to touch down in. And it becomes less of an incubator situation and more of an on-demand to allow companies to have a bit of a, we feel like we're all together moment. So
yeah, you may be right. I just think that somebody else is going to sneak up on them now.
Oh yeah, that could definitely happen.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to use that idea when the headhunter calls me.
Absolutely.
Saul, I will turn you over to them for sure.
I'm serious. I'd love that gig.
All right.
Well,
I'd make it a homeless shelter.
Have a suggestion for this list or just want to discuss it? Comment online. Use the hashtag FairFailFoul. That's #FairFailFoul. And that does it for this week's show. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, visit our website at thebeancast.com and click on the subscribe link. If you're an Apple Podcast listener, we've also provided a direct link to our listing there, or just search for the BeanCast in the podcast directory on the Apple Podcasts app. And whichever podcast directory you use, when you subscribe, please leave us a review. Got a comment? Have a question? We'd love to hear from you. Just send your emails to beancast@gmail.com. Opening theme was performed by Joe Seibel. Closing theme by C. Jax. Thanks for listening. I'm Bob Norp. We'll be back again next week. Hope you'll join us then.
You know what I mean? It's like if it's, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. Just like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like totally like that. It's like, I don't know, like if it's, you know, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like kind of, it just seems like it's just like almost exactly. It's like exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? Exactly.
Cool beans.